Okay, back. Got a drink. Had to lay down for a minute. While I do feel a bit tired, it's usually the reading of text that triggers me wanting to sleep. You don't know who you're messing with. We ain't no ordinary goblins, sweetheart. Where Lord Lynx is a light guard. The goblins that gobble other goblins that rake the gob squad. Oh, could shun your mouth off and let me stick a boot in it. And with that, Kid launched into a lightning-fast spinning kick. Her boot connected with the side of a goblin's head with a crack, sending the creature tumbling to the ground. Get him, lads! The boy looks scrawny. Start with him! The goblin captain spun the heavy metal ball of his morning star in the air. Glorious gobstrike! Aye. The goblins charged across the room in response to their captain's command. Gobstrike incoming! A goblin rushed toward me, swinging its weapon overhead. I swiftly dodged the attack. The morning star brushed past my cheek. I don't know how, but I managed to escape unscathed. I lost my balance, though, and fell clumsily to the floor. Another of the goblins hesitated for just a moment, only to be run through by a spear of pure lightning conjured up by Magil. The goblin let out a blood-curdling howl as electricity coursed through its body. It clutched awkwardly at its chest where it had been struck, its face contorted with agony and horror. Magil's cape fluttered, and his piercing eyes stared coldly at his victim. None who defy me shall escape my wrath. Another goblin flew down from overhead. Bombs away. With a growl, it sent its morning star swinging from above. I was better off attacking than trying for a clumsy dodge. I tackled the goblin head-on. Literally, I smashed my skull into the goblin's grim visage as hard as I could. The shock ran through my neck and shoulders like I'd been brained with a hammer. Why attack with your head, you dingus? But it was worth it. Teeth and spittle flew left and right as the great, ugly brute rolled stunned across the floor. A blazing pain seared through my mind, and I fell to my knees. Cup striking comin'. A goblin rushed toward me, swinging its weapon overhead. I swiftly dodged the attack. The morning star brushed past my cheek. I don't know how, but I managed to escape unscathed. I lost my balance, though, and fell clumsily to the floor. I lost my balance, though, and fell clumsily to the floor. Another of the goblins hesitated for just a moment, only to be run through by a spear of pure lightning conjured up by Magil. So there's what, two left. The goblin let out a blood-curdling howl as electricity coursed through its body. It clutched awkwardly at its chest where it had been struck, its face contorted with agony and horror. Magil's cape fluttered, and his piercing eyes stared coldly at his victim. None who defy me shall escape my wrath. Another goblin flew down form overhead. Bombs away. With a growl, it sent its morning star swinging from above. I rolled across the floor, dodging the attack. But I wasn't fast enough and the iron ball crashed straight into my back. I let out a howl as the force of the impact juddered through my body. I'd never felt such raw pain in my entire life. I rolled around the floor in agony. Doob Studio crashed again. One second. I closed everything on the iPhone. I'd never felt such raw pain in my entire life. I rolled around the floor in agony. Har 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 har. Dance for me, boy. Let me hear you sing. As I curled on the floor, the shadow of the goblin towered over me like a black mountain. As I curled on the floor, the shadow of the goblin towered over me like a black mountain. Die brat. Can he have? Its lips curled around its fangs in a lingering grin, and it raised its weapon over its head. Oh no, you don't you have to get through me first. Magil conjured up a black wind, which surged forth like a shearing tempest. How does a human know a spell like that? Who are you? The goblin was quickly silenced as the rushing winds tore through it, and it collapsed to the floor with a final shriek. Hi, Overlord Ezzy. Thank you for the raid. Phasmoha. This game is not that scary, though it did have one jump scare. Magil looked down at his victim, his expression unchanged. Long live Lord Lynx! Glory to the Gob Squad! With these final words, the goblin collapsed. That was the last of them. Thank you for the resub, Overlord Izzy. Thank you for the follow, the Rugginen. We made it. Ha, piece of cake, said Kid, putting a brave face on things as she wiped the sweat from her brow with her arm. And then she stopped and looked at me. You know, I thought this was like a 4-hour game. But it's so far been over 6. Then again, I'm reading it all up. And then she stopped and looked at me. Search, what were you thinking, you great Drongo? Getting the goblins to come after y'all like that. You really didn't have to, you know. Kid gazed softly at me, her blue eyes like the cool glow of the moon. She seemed to be trembling slightly. She looked down at the ground, hiding her face. Thanks. I'll never forget what happened tonight. Even if we go our separate ways, even if we never meet again, never. And then Nigel stepped in. Save the chatter for later. We can't waste any more time here. The frozen flame sucked me somewhere else in the manor. All right, mate, thanks for stating the obvious. It's not my bloody fault that Lynx has to make things so bloody difficult for everyone. Kit spun on her heel and made a sulky about face for the door. Suddenly, her attention returned to the pile of defeated goblins. Hum? This bunch of Drongos said their Lynx is a light guard, right? But they've got some nice loot on 'em. With that, she started unceremoniously rummaging through the fallen captain's pockets. Thank you for the follow, friends fade. She was like a hyena sniffing for scraps. Hello, hello? What this? She'd found an odd metal plate. It resembled an open hand and was covered in runes. Thank you for the follow below average gimmer. It resembled an open hand and was covered in runes. Reckon this might open some other magic door somewhere. We'll never know when it might come in hand either way, finders keepers. The plate vanished into Kid's pocket. Humph, looks like there's nothing else worth taking, unless you count pocket lint and bits of string. She rose to her feet and looked around the room. You know, it's a real shame to leave the rest of all this loot just sitting here unloved. Heh, suppose we can come back for it whenever. Kid turned to face us and flashed a grin. All right, lads, get a move on. It ain't gonna be dark forever. That hand-shaped plate is our only clue for now. Muttered Magil, seemingly to himself. And with that, we left the vault in search of the real frozen flame. Okay, for the sake of narrating everything, we're gonna fast travel for a bit he. I guess that wasn't the option I wanted. You've gotta be kidding me, shouted Kid, glaring at me. Are you telling me to swim through a bloody lake of pteranodons? And if you weren't here yesterday? This was the first room I got to, and it literally filled with red water. Which is implied to be blood. Yeah, you can count me out, mate. How am I supposed to charm me victims with big chunks bitten out of me? Have a good night, AC. I guess she had a point. Here's a better plan. Why don't we go back to Beardy and try sticking something down his gob? Sure enough, she pulled out her bundle of odds and ends. Do I have to? I asked, knowing the answer. which was probably just as well, since Kid only glared at me in response. My hand hovered for a moment before I finally reached for something. I chose. So last time we were here, we didn't have the plate. And I tried the thread first, which came back with a note that said, try again. I tried the mirror, which did nothing. Then tried the grapes, which the statue ate, and then Kid got mad about. And I tried the centipede. Which had one of the more humorous responses. Because the statue licked Sturgis' arm when he tried to get it back. I took the hand-shaped metal plate we'd found. After taking another look at the runes, I was no closer to working out what they might mean. Here goes nothing. I stuck the plate into the mouth of Truth's marble maw. As soon as I did so, its eyes rolled upward and the wall gave a light judder. A low rumbling sound came from the sculpture's mouth. This, indeed, is the ultimate truth of the universe. Did you hear something? I watched the mouth of truth in confusion. its great marble tongue lolled out, almost like a snake. It coiled around the plate, seizing it and pulling it deep inside. What? What going on? In a panic, I looked to Magel for answers. Seems this ineffable truth of the universe has left even the mouth of truth tongue-tied. Magel answered in his usual deadpan manner. I think he might even have been trying to make a joke. Hang on so that plate thingy revealed the truth of the universe. And when you went and crammed it down Beardy Gullet, do you realize how much we could have sold that for? Kit kicked the floor in frustration and snapped her fingers. And then drains on all sides of the room suddenly opened wide. The red water formed eddies as it sank away. Helpless, the pyramids were washed away with the current. Soon only trickles of water were left, slowly dripping away. Well, that is true. Oh, locked, ain't it? Guess we won't be sleeping with the fishes tonight, grunted Kid, looking at the empty pool. We crossed the drained room, making for the exit on the other side, and pressed on. We went through the atrium and then continued down the corridor before finding ourselves at a fork in the road. The corridor stretched off to left and right. We continued down the dank corridor until some stairs leading downward finally came into view. Okay, well, there is only one way to key. Slowly, we crept down the staircase, descending deeper into the shadows as we went. At the bottom, we found ourselves at another intersection. The dim, narrow passageway branched left and right. The one issue I have with this game is that when it asks for handed directions, I'm not sure if it means left or right from the direction you came or from a map. Because, like I said yesterday, when I looked at the map, the directions were reversed in the description. So it's possible, though, that when something in the game says left, it might actually mean right. We followed the corridor for a while before coming across a small door. Get a whiff of that. Something smells good, whispered Kid, sniffing at the air. Now based on the mat. Coming down the stairs, going right leads us he. Which means it's a hidden direction. But we actually went west. We opened the door. Blimey, this is a small kitchen. Must be for the servants, commented Magil. I scanned our surroundings. A basin for washing dishes, cooking utensils, some of food made ready for tomorrow, and a mousetrap. It looked like any other commoner's kitchen. Kid walked over to a large pot filled with food and peered inside. Looks like tomorrow lunch. Wanna try some, Serge? I don't know, do you want to be the Goldilocks when the bears come home? Timidly, I peered into the pot. It looked like stew, and it didn't smell bad at all. Almost inviting. I scooped some up with a ladle and brought it to my mouth. Go. This stuff's delicious. You should grab a bowl, kid, I urged between bites. Kid was looking at me again, staring at me intently, in fact, like she was searching for something. Well, you ain't going green or nothing. Guess it's safe. All right, let's have a try. She licked her lips with anticipation and swiped my spoon right out of my hand. Fancy a taste, Mag? Number. Nope. Kid grabbed a bowl from nearby and began spooning out more. I did the same. We ate our fill. The stew was still warm, and it felt as though the magic of fresh home cooking was easing my wounds somewhat. Suddenly, a little voice rang out. You there, the young man with the braid? Kid froze. Oh, who you calling, a bloke? Kid barked angrily in the direction the voice was coming from. A mouse was looking at us with eyes like saucers, from the inside of a mouse trap hanging from the wall in a corner of the room. Oh, I am sorry. You're a young lady, I see. The mouse bowed its head in apology. Please, kind young lady, you must hear me out. The mouse put its paws together and stared pleadingly at Kid. I left the nest to find food for Mother, but as you can see, I managed to get myself caught in a trap. If you leave me here, I will surely be eaten by goblins. Kid eyed the little creature suspiciously. Eaten by goblins. Wait, that's stew. All I know is that mouse stew. Yeah, at first I was thinking ratatouille, but now I'm thinking witches. Putting two and two together, Kid ran for the sink. I beg of you, please free me from this trap. My mother is sick and she'll be terribly worried about what has become of me. The mouse was clearly begging for its life, but there was also an odd little glint in its eye. I wonder if this is where Pip came from in CHRONO. Meanwhile, Kid was at the sink. Glurp. Herc, I'm never gonna get that taste out of my mouth. I'll be buggered if I'm hanging around here any longer. Kid had returned from the sink, only to stamp off toward the door. She was looking very green around the gills. Her kindly young lady, I don't suppose you could free me first. You got yourself into this mess. You can sort it out yourself. Kid all but spat on the ground as she left the room. The mouse's eyes welled up as it looked to me. Young man, please, you're my only hope. Well, there's a line everyone knows. Yeah, fine. Unable to bear it staring at me any more with those pleading eyes, I lifted down the cage and opened the door. The mouse bounded happily out from inside. Ka-hee. The mouse gave a wicked chuckle. Oh, crap. You poor knave fool. Suddenly, his body began to balloon massively in size. Oh, Surge. What are you doing in? Kid stopped in horror the moment she opened the door. Oh, another griffin. Bugger me. A griffin. The enormous creature stared balefully down at us. Idiot humans. My mother is not sick, but what yours will be when she sees what I've done to you. Good going, Surge, you're a bloody liability, you are. Oof, Okay, maybe I made a mistake, but she didn't have to rub it in like that. The griffin gave an almighty cry and leapt right at us. Its razor-sharp talons sliced through the air, raking down toward me. Caught off guard, I tried my best to dodge the attack. But the blow never came, as the griffin suddenly lost its balance and came crashing to the ground. Oh bother, I'm too hungry to even fight properly. What on earth? I breathed a sigh of relief, running a hand down my chest. All right, little mouse. Now it's time for the real show to begin. Kid walked up to the griffin, cracking her knuckles. Go, pee-pee please, kindly young lady. This is all misunderstanding. A terrible misunderstanding. Panicking, the creature leapt to its feet. You can't kill me. I have useful information. If you may go, I promise I'll tell you everything I know, everything. Yeah, I know how much a promise from the likes of you is worth. Kid took another step toward the griffin, not skipping a beat. Rhea, please. Kid kept on coming. The griffin kept on shrinking away. Enough. Majula called for Kid to stop. Let's hurt it? Let's hear it. Oh, thank you, kind sir. The griffin was beside itself with relief. Have spoiled my fun, why don't ya? Grumbled Kid, pouting as she turned away. Listen well, O merciful Savory. Right thrice. Left twice. Right twice. Should you find yourself trapped in one of Lynx's swirling snares, remember my words. So right 3 times, left 2 times, right 2 times. You know, there was actually a puzzle in Chrono Cross that was like this to a... Yeah, it was randomized, I think, in the Chrono Cross game, but it was still a 3-digit code, I think. With that, the griffin returned to its mouse-like form and disappeared into a small hole in the wall. trapped in Lynx's snares. Ha! As if I'd be thick enough to walk into one of his traps. Let's get out of here. We wasted enough time already. Kit turned on her heel and made for the door. We left the kitchen. Leaving the room behind us, we took a right turn down the corridor. We followed it for a while before coming to an intersection. The way to the left ended at a staircase going up. The corridor also continued directly ahead, but the way was completely enshrouded in darkness. We continued on down the corridor until it ended at a large door covered in scratches and old rod marks. Above the door was a wooden plate. It bore the legend, "Guard Room," in elaborate calligraphy. Well, guards are one thing we definitely don't need right now. Come on, let's do one. With you around, who knew what kind of mess we were about to get into? Maybe, but with search around, who knows what kind of traps we're about to walk into. What a trusting relationship we enjoyed. We made our way back through the corridor. We left the room and took the left turn down the corridor. We followed it for a while before coming to an intersection. The way to the right ended a staircase going up. The passage soon ended at the foot of some stairs. With Kid taking the lead, we started to climb the narrow staircase. When we reached the top, we found ourselves at the end of a long, straight corridor. We continued on. We followed the corridor, eventually reaching a fork in the path. I'll be right back.